Thank you. Senator Fischer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member Collins, for holding this hearing today. I thank you for joining us today to Secretary Mayorkas and Secretary Becerra. As I said last week, there is a national security crisis at our southern border. FY 2023 set a record of total encounters, almost 2.5 million. This September set a new monthly record for encounters along the southwest border, nearly 270,000. The Biden administration also sets a new record of encounters of individuals on the terrorist watch list between ports of entry, 169 total arrests on the southern border. That is more than the previous 3 fiscal years combined. Secretary Mayorkas, that is not a record to be proud of. President Biden's national security supplemental request included $13.6 billion for the border and migration, including nearly $9 billion for DHS, with very few details of how DHS intends to spend that funding. Money alone is not going to solve this crisis. That's clear. We must make policy changes to that. And I appreciate some colleagues on the other side of the aisle who recognize that that can be done incrementally. Whether it's tightening our asylum standards or limiting the use of parole to case-by-case basis, policies must be enacted to stem the flow of migration to our southern border. We've come to this hearing today to address emergencies. Natural disasters are emergencies. Our southern border is an emergency. Helping our friends defend themselves against brutal attacks, that's an emergency. But the latest supplemental request really stretches the definition of what an emergency is. For example, I agree that the child care shortage is a crisis and that thoughtful and sustained attention is necessary. However, we need to be honest with the American people. We have to differentiate between emergency spending and long-term investment in our national priorities. The Child Care Development Block Grant is a bipartisan program with a storied history that should be supported and it should be improved. ARPA created the Child Care Stabilization Fund to instead support a new program that had a firm expiration date of September 30th, 2023. The program in ARPA was created through a partisan reconciliation package to address what we were told was the immediate child care emergency caused by COVID and prolonged lockdowns. COVID emergency funding was never intended to be indefinite. This committee knew it would expire. This Congress knew it would expire. The Biden administration knew it would expire. And Mr. Secretary, you knew it would expire. Knowing that it was set to expire in September of 2023, in your FY24 budget request, you requested $9 billion for the Child Care Block Grant Program. But now, just a few months later, you're here and you're highlighting a completely manufactured cliff, asking for $16 billion to supplement regular order appropriations. That's not how to effectively run a government, and it's a concerning trend throughout this request. As a government, we cannot continue to bolster certain priorities through unsustainable and really unreliable year-end emergency supplementals, instead of addressing priorities through regular order and budgeting. So, Secretary Becerra, you state that if Congress does not provide additional funding for the COVID Emergency Child Care Fund, working families across the country are going to suffer the consequences. with higher out-of-pocket costs, fewer options for care, more women leaving the workforce. And none of us up here want that. Not one person up here wants to see that happen. But my question to you is this. Do you believe that throwing in a request for $16 billion for an expired program into an end-of-the-year emergency supplemental request is an effective way to address one of the most pressing issues facing families? Why didn't you address it in the budget request? You know, I joined this committee, and I thank the chairwoman, I thank the ranking member for following regular order. You know, we went through hearings, we went through markups, but to me, this is going around the appropriations process, and I am upset by that. I think for a government to run and for families and businesses to have certainty in their lives, we need to identify those priorities, be honest about them, and do it in regular order. And, sir, I don't believe this is.
Madam Chair, I know time has expired, but
If you have 20 seconds, 30 seconds for
certainly.
response.
Senator, I hope you will work. I know the chairwoman has been trying to work to increase the funding for child care through the Child Care and Development Fund. But as you know, that only goes to certain families who qualify. And even then, that money only accounts for about 1 in 7 of the eligible families who need child care. The stabilization money was meant to actually help providers, not necessarily directly the families, because providers were going under. I hope you agree that it is an emergency if a child care center that millions of American families depend on if they go under, it is an emergency. It will be a crisis.